Hello everyone. For the 3 people who end up watching this video, I welcome you. This is Erik, the Asian movie enthusiast. I needed some alcohol today, and in a few minutes you'll know why. So I am here reviewing Jellyfish Eyes, which is a 2013 fantasy drama action film from Japan. So what's the plot of Jellyfish Eyes, you may ask? Well, it's basically about this. Children are able to communicate and control fantastical creatures, little fantastical creatures, but they are unknowingly being used in an evil plan to collect negative energy. Okay? Now, if you fire up the trailer for this movie on YouTube, you'll notice that the special effects are a bit dodgy. But bad CGI isn't a problem for me if the rest of the film is actually good. Unfortunately, in this case, it's a really big problem, because Jellyfish Eyes basically sucks. And this is coming from a guy who likes cheesy movies. I mean, heck, The Boxer's Omen from 1983 is one of my favorite movies of all time. But you see, The Boxer's Omen actually had charm to it. There's no charm in Jellyfish Eyes. Now, you may ask why. My answer is this: because it's a very lazy film. Okay? I mean, how much thought was actually put into this? You know, while watching this movie, I kept thinking about it. How much thought was put into this movie? I mean, it probably took a little bit of time to think up the little creatures, you know what I mean? But it's not like these are these incredibly impressive creature designs or anything. I mean, it couldn't have taken that long. I hope not. In general, I mean, the script writing and the scenario building are just very weak, and it stands out. There's no character development whatsoever, and the monster fights you would hope would save the film, but they're mostly stupid. I wasn't that entertained by them. I mean, when you construct the fights, I mean, yeah, there were a few decent moments here and there, but overall, just not impressive, man. I mean, in the performances, oh my goodness, the performances in this movie are really bad in general. I mean, Ei Shina shows up. Remember that actress from Takashi Miike's Audition? She was pretty good, but she's like the only bright spot in this movie, and she only has like 3 minutes of screen time. I mean, none of the kids in this movie can act at all, and their interactions with each other are just obnoxious. I mean, I've seen a handful of South Korean films starring Se-ran Kim, as well as a handful of Japanese films directed by Hirokazu Kurita, so I know, like, what good child acting looks like on screen. It's not in this movie. And all of the alleged subtext I keep hearing, like, in reviews, there's all this subtext about contemporary Japanese issues. I mean, when you look at the actual content of the film, it's practically non-existent. And when it does exist, it's shallow and worthless. So this film, I looked it up. Okay, I looked up some information on this turd. And this film was directed by a guy named Takashi Murakami, who never directed a film before, but he's a hugely popular artist. Okay? I gotta tell you, man, I didn't see much artistry in this film. I mean, this film is an abject failure on almost every level. It's that bad. Now, you know, if you enjoyed watching it, then that's great. But I personally haven't been this embarrassed and angry while watching a Japanese movie since I saw Sadako 3D back in 2012. And if you've seen Sadako 3D, you know what I'm talking about. And yes, Jellyfish Eyes is very much on the same level as Sadako 3D in terms of overall quality. Yeah. But let's change it up. Let's just be positive for 5 seconds. I'll go the extra mile here. So let's say you're a person who's interested in a Japanese film where human beings control little fantastical spirits and use them in battles. I got one for you. It's called League Horumo from 2009. Go watch that film because it's way better than Jellyfish Eyes. Way better. I mean, people are saying like Jellyfish Eyes is like this unbelievable film that's never been done before. The Japanese just did it. What? 5, 6, or a few years before that, and it was done way better. Now, it may seem like I'm ranting here, and I am, But I have another little rant to go on regarding the Criterion Collection. Let me take a drink. I'll give a little review of that stuff at the end of this video. So now, okay, I do have some admiration for the Criterion Collection. In fact, I have a lot of admiration for them. For those of you who don't know, it's basically a video distribution company that has released tons of Japanese films in America. I do greatly appreciate their efforts. I do, and I'm starting with that. However, that doesn't automatically mean that they're immune to criticism. Now, one question that came to mind is this. What on earth was Criterion thinking when they released this film? I mean, did anyone at Criterion actually sit down and watch Jellyfish Eyes before they decided to distribute it in the United States? Of all the great Japanese films that have been released over the past 15 years that deserve Criterion treatment, Criterion releases Jellyfish Eyes. So I did a little research and found out that Janus Films actually acquired the rights to distribute Jellyfish Eyes in North America. And Janus Films apparently has a very close relationship with Criterion regarding the release of their films on DVD. So there you have it. There's your explanation. You know, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. Now you might think I'm overreacting a little bit. Like, why are you criticizing Criterion? They've released so many good Japanese films on DVD. This is just one noticeably awful decision by them. They deserve to make a mistake once in a while, right? But there's an obvious trend going on here. Now, if you look at their mission statement, it says that they are dedicated to, quote, important classic and contemporary films, unquote. Now, I could easily list 100 Japanese films that are entirely deserving of Criterion DVD release. Yet for some reason, Criterion is extremely apprehensive at releasing contemporary Japanese films. Now, if you look at their website, they have 191 Japanese films listed right on their website catalog of films released. Now, guess how many of those are post-2000 films? 2 out of 191. Still Walking from 2008, which is a good movie. Okay, I'll give you that one. And Jellyfish Eyes from 2013. Now, taking into consideration their mission statement, what kind of message does this send to their fans? Now think about this for a second. Criterion is dedicated to important classic and contemporary films, yet 189 out of their 191 Japanese films that they've released and listed on their website library are films that were made before the year 2000, most of which were decades before the year 2000. There's only a handful that pepper in the 80s and 90s. So that tells me that Criterion is either completely ignorant of modern Japanese film, or they simply don't think that modern Japanese films are important or worthy enough for distribution. And, you know, as a fan of both classic and contemporary Japanese cinema, it just kind of rubs me the wrong way, you know? Now, you know, Criterion, they can release whatever films they want. But the fact that they almost completely ignore the plethora of great Japanese films that have been released in recent years only intensifies the general misconception that Japanese classics are the only Japanese films that one should bother to watch. And I see this misconception all the time. And the main reason this misconception exists is due to incompetent DVD distribution for modern Japanese films. Now, some of that is due to, you know, I've read articles that the Japanese film industry usually makes their money back and makes profits in their home country, so they don't really push their films as much internationally. But still, you know, Criterion's 191 Japanese films released, it's not that bad of a scenario. So some of the blame needs to fall on some of the companies here that are distributing films in the U.S. Now, if Criterion really wanted to release a Japanese film from the year 2013, they could have chosen something like Miss Zombie, okay, which is an art house horror film that's right up their alley. I mean, it's glacially paced and it's shot in black and white, for goodness sakes. I mean, how much artsier can you be? It's right up their alley. It's almost like a classic horror film that was filmed in the modern times. So, I mean, Miss Zombie, in my opinion, is one of the best horror films of the last 30 years. but few Americans have heard about it because you have companies like Criterion that choose to release films like Jellyfish Eyes instead. I mean, there's a cinematic opportunity cost here that's just enormous. Remember when people got mad when Criterion released Armageddon on DVD? Well, Jellyfish Eyes makes Armageddon look like Tokyo Story. Just think about that one for a second. So, I don't usually like ranty type videos, but man, when I was watching this movie a few days ago, I paid good money to see it, streaming on Amazon or whatever, and I was like, you gotta be kidding me, this thing's terrible. And then it just got me thinking about these related issues. I just had to post this. Perfect timing for my YouTube channel, which I just started like 2 weeks ago posting videos on, right? So, this whiskey is made in Taiwan. All right, now let's make sure I'm in the proper frame here. This is the Kavalan Vino Barrique. All right, now it's 57% alcohol, so it's pretty, but the taste is really nice. I'm a big fan of Japanese whiskey, actually. I've had a number of Japanese whiskeys, most of which are good, some of which are really good. So if you have the chance, try a Japanese whiskey or some of this stuff. This stuff's kind of expensive, though, but feel free to splurge. So that's my little rant, and I promise I'll be in the better mood when I see you next time.